Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Here we from the last group will present you one of the topic of morphology. So can you read in the slides? It's about conclusion, word in English and in language generally. But before we're going to the slides, let me introduce the members of this group. First, there is Lia Sabrina Aisyah, Ahmad Zakki Fuadi, Wahyu Putra Pradana, Sofia Nur Hanifah, Sylmina Cahya S, and Renida Nurul Azmi. Okay, so let's move to the next slides. So in this slide, we have set out the distinguish and elucidate different sense of the word word and how they apply in English. So before we are going to the next topic, there is a question. What comes to your mind or when you hear what comes to your mind when you hear word word? Maybe most of you will think that word is the small units of language. That is the general definition of word, but in linguistics, a word is a unit which is constituent at the phrase level and above. The word sometimes identifiable according to some criteria. Word is sometimes placed in a hierarchy of grammatical constituents, above the morpheme level and below the phrase level. So next. Yeah, so here's some fact or phenomena about word. There are some things that make some of linguists or researcher think more about how is the definition and the correct answer. How can we conclude about some phenomenon in language? So word as a basic unit of syntactic organization, the building bricks out of which phrases and sentences are composed, don't coincide exactly with words as items listed in dictionary. There are items that need listing but are not words in the grammatical sense. And there are words in a grammatical sense whose meaning in behavior are so reliable, predictable that they do not need listing. So why this should be so? This phenomenon makes a big question to researcher, to linguist. Is it so in all language or is English peculiar? So here we have some reasons. Next. Yeah, so those phenomena arise so naturally out of issues addressed in an introductory textbooks. There is no such consensus among linguistic scholars about how they should be answered. This reflects the myriadness of the research effort that has been devoted to morphology, the lexicon, and lexical semantics over the last 50 years. By comparison with the huge intellectual resources devoted to syntax and phonology. So how can we answer the question is you can find in the next slide that will be present by my friend Sofia Nur Hanifah.
Okay, thank you very much, Zakki, for your presentation. Okay, everyone, let us move on to the next topic. That is possible reasons why lexemes and lexical items are overlapping. Okay, Mina, can you next slide? All right, thank you. Firstly, everyone, we'll talk about lexeme first. Okay, we know that lexemes are a minimal unit of language that is phonologically and semantically distinct. And lexeme also can stand alone. All right. To understand this term, at the example, there are the words run, ran, running, runs. Yeah, but that is in one lexeme. The lexeme is the run. Okay, and lexeme has a lot of type. Noun lexeme, adjective lexeme, and to be is the most 12 type. That is, am, are not, were not, was not, and so on. Yeah, that is about lexemes. Then, Mina, can you next again? Okay, thank you. The next term is about lexical unit. We can call lexical unit lexical item, lexical entity, and that is the same meaning of the point lexical unit. But here we can use lexical item. Yes, lexical item is a single word, part of a word that forms the basic elements of language's lexicon. Or we can say that in vocabulary, lexical item is a single word. For example, like the word singer, payment, recently, and here are not words but convey meaning in the following words. Yeah, the then a lexical unit is also a division in the sense of a lexeme. Now, for other example, if the two meanings of a word are related, then they are lexical units of one lexeme, like this one: pen fine, pen for writing, pen kind, pen knife, pen name. They are lexical units of the lexeme pen because they all have aspects of right. Okay, we next to the next slide. All right. Mm. Knowing those terms, yeah, lexeme and lexical items, we face overlapping often between two in English. Let us discuss it. Okay, everyone. There are two sentences here. The first, Edward sang the solos at the concert, and the second is the solos at the concert were sung by Edward. Nah, we try to identify the respects in which they resemble one another and the respects in which they differ. Look at this. From these sentences, we know that they are is the same of lexical content, but grammatically they are different. The first sentence is active voice, the second sentence is the passive voice. So we know that the first possible reason is because the expression of two forms of the same sentence has no application for us. So we can distinguish between lexeme and lexical units or lexical items. All right, next to the following slide. All right. Now, um, however, for present purposes, what matters about the overlapping of lexeme and lexical units is the fact, the factual reason. Look at these words. There are sang and sung. Maybe you guys uh, understand this sentence is same meaning, but the relationship is different, right? Do you feel this to be related also? Yeah, but the relationship is different, totally different. For example, a dictionary will not assign to them two separate entries. When we entry sing, there are also sang, sung, singing, singer, but in one lexeme that is sing. So from this, we also facing overlapping here. In appropriate context, the lexeme is expressed. So there is an area of grammar, namely inflectional morphology, where it makes sense to talk of different forms of the same item. Alright, for the two reasons why lexeme and lexical item can relate, because the conclusion is because in inflectional morphology, that processes forms play the essential role. Yeah. Even though these processes are available conclusions elsewhere. So that where it makes sense to talk to different forms of the same item. Okay, thank you. That's about the overlapping between lexeme and lexical items in English. Thank you. And the next topic will be present by my Mbak Renida and
All right.
Okay, so the next topic will be present by two of our friends, Sylmina Cahya and Wahyu Putra.
Okay, so for the first part of our topic, uh, let me present you. Now we will move to the next topic, lexemes and lexical items, the situation outside English. For this topic, I would like you to accompany me to have a little traveling because we will take a look at other languages that have a slight different structure than English. So here I have a question to show you. Is the considerable overlap between lexemes and lexical items that is a feature of English found in all languages? The answer is, of course, yes, right? But I will show you the answer later after this. So we will focus on this question first. The question is two-folded, uh, in which each fold will determine what kind of languages is outside English based on the comparison of amount of lexical items and lexemes inside the language. The first kind is idiom-heavy languages. Idiom-heavy languages have more lexical items that are not lexemes than in English. And the second kind is neologism-heavy languages. In neologism-heavy languages, lexemes that are not lexical items is much higher than English. So we will jump right into the language example. The first example is Vietnamese. Vietnamese has no inflectional morphology and almost no bound morphemes like roots or affixes. You know, affixes is prefixes and suffixes, right? Just as we have learned in the previous semesters. And where any distinction between morphological compounds and syntactic phrases is dubious. In Vietnamese, therefore, nearly all polymorphemic lexical items must be analyzed and phrasal idioms rather than lexemes. Either it is compound or derived words. So in short, we cannot find any like inflectional or bound morpheme. almost at all in Vietnamese. Instead, phrases are created to build compound nouns or any other polymorphic lexical items. So this implies that Vietnamese is the first kind of language, which is idiom-heavy language. And we proceed to the next language, French. So in French, many concepts that are expressed by compound nouns in English are expressed by phrases in French. So it's a little bit different from English. As you can see in the table number 5, we have 4 examples of compound nouns. I'm going to take the first word, teacup. Teacup means, like tray or place to pour down tea and then we drink it, right? And in English, we just have to connect 2 words from tea and cup and connect without any connector. While in French, we will have to need a connector like preposition. So in French, it is called tasse à de. Between the 2 source of words, we put the preposition between them. So if it's translated, it literally means cup to tea. Yeah, and you can read yourself the other example of compound nouns in English, in both English and French, in the comparison. So that's all from me. The next slide is going to be presented by Wahyu. Wahyu, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mina. Continue what Mina said. It is not that French lacks compounds. For example, is road George, Robin, literally red road, and then great shield or skyscraper, literally sky. But it is notable that these compounds are all exocentric, because Robin is not a kind of throat, and then a skyscraper is certainly not a kind of sky. In French, endocentric nominal compounds are relatively scarce by comparison with English. In their place, French makes greater use of phrasal idioms. Similarly with Vietnamese before, French is also relatively idiom heavy. Next, Mina. Okay, thank you. And then the third example is unit or Eskimo language. Many items whose meaning must be closed by means of a sentence in English have the characteristics of a morphologically complex lexeme or a word form belonging to such a lexeme rather than of a larger synthetic unit. In Eskimo, many more lexemes than in English have the entirely predictable and therefore unleashed character that I ascribe to adverb lexemes such as deliciously. It is as if Eskimo chooses to exploit the morphological route in forming many complex expressions, where many languages would opt for the synthetic route. And then the next slide will be presented by the 2 of my friends, Lia Sabrina and Renida Azmi.
Okay, this is the last topic, lexeme and word form, the situation outside English. Let's move the next slide. Word is the smallest meaningful unit in the language which can be used independently. For example, In the left part, there are incorrect words, and the right part is correct word. Race, car, and cycle. Senseless usage of words or lexeme. An elephant eats grass. The lion eats white carrot. Horse brushes teeth. Next. There are two example picture missing one letter or error in placement. Beautiful and mistake. In this part, there are table example two country, France and German. In French, rich adding e and German adding brother. In English, rich and brother. Next. Lexeme is smallest semantic language unit. This may sound complicated, but in fact any word with meaning constitutes voice or written expression of lexemes. Lexemes are created from root words by adding prefix, suffix, and affix. Here are the example: work, works, worker, working. Read, reads, reader, reading. A word remains a word until its class or form is changed, but it will represent a separate lexeme. For example, speak as a noun, speaks as a verb, speaker as a noun, speaking as a noun verb. And the second example, cut as a noun, cuts as a verb, cutter as a noun, cutting as noun verb. Next. Example for sentence. Fauzi cuts an apple. Cuts as a verb. There is a cut on an apple. Cut as a noun. In the third example, an electrician is cutting wires. Cutting as verb. Cutter is major tool of electrician. There are three pictures. Cook. Cook shown in the picture. Cooking. And cooker. Cooker which is used for cooking. And then this is example. One lexeme, different word between English and Bosnia. And the next will be continue with my friend Lia.
Okay, thank you. I will give another example for lexeme and form of words by using the example one from English and the other from non-English language. The first is the English word forms boy and boys make up the lexeme boy. Boy means one person with male gender, and boys mean more than one male gendered person. The second is the Latin word forms hebeo, which means I have, habes, which means you have, habet, which means she or he has, habemus means we have, habebam means I had, habebun means they will have, and so on, made up the lexeme haber. We can see that the Latin word forms of haber differs from the use of pronouns like I, you, she or he, we, and the use of tense.
Is that all?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so guys, that's all from us. Thank you for your attention. I hope you understand all of the presentation. I would like to thank to all of the members who spoke or performed pretty well in this presentation. So if you have some questions, you can send it to our emails. So thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you.